Welcome to This Week in East Brunswick. School's out for the summer on Friday. This week we'll show how some students are wrapping up the year. We'll see scenes from Diving for Treasure, an undersea adventure at Chittick School, a multicultural fair at Irwin School, and interviews with members of the award-winning academic team at the high school. Also this week, an invitation to the second annual Strikeout Hunger Bowl-a-thon to be held on the 26th. An update on progress at Crystal Springs Family Aquatic Center, and with Violence Against Women headline news this week, information about how a local organization, the Center for Women's Global Leadership, is contributing to the campaign for women's human rights. But first, here's a look at programming next week on Channel 8. Winding up the month of June, work out with Lenore Kulik Monday at 10. That's on Look Great, Feel Great. At 10:30, it's Stories from the Library for preschoolers. Tuesday night, Just Kidding goes on location to Shea Stadium, finds out what kids think about smoking cigarettes, and flashes back through the 93-94 season. That's at 7 o'clock. At 7:30 on You and Your Money, Paul Hansen investigates international investing. And at 8 o'clock, Judith Lebline gets a glamorous makeover on Exercise the Right Choice. The commencement ceremony for East Brunswick High School's class of 94 will be shown at 8:30 Tuesday night. Mathematics in grades K through 12 is the focus of this month's Spotlight on Education. That's Wednesday night at 7:30. At 8 o'clock, Teen TV hosts visit the Home News headquarters on Edgeboro Road. A new edition of This Week in East Brunswick will be televised Thursday night at 7. Check the Community Bulletin Board for additional programming information.
Hi, my name is Imtiaz Aziz. I'm the State Coordinator for Hand to Hand of New Jersey. I'm here to invite you to the second annual Bowl-a-thon, which is going to be held on June 26th at the Carrier Lanes, which is located on Route 1 in North Brunswick. This Bowl-a-thon is being sponsored by Hand to Hand of New Jersey and Events to End Helplessness. Hand to Hand of New Jersey is a nonprofit organization committed to ending hunger on a permanent and sustainable basis. Hand to Hand has three objectives. One is to raise awareness that hunger exists. Two, build partnerships, and three, to increase the resources necessary to end hunger. Based on the information available to us, 25% of the world's population and nearly 10% of the population in this country suffers from chronic and persistent hunger. Unfortunately, 75% of those who suffer are children. Hand to Hand also works with 34 hunger organizations across the state and focuses on projects like the Phoenix Project. The Phoenix Project is about providing training in life skills and employment skills so those who are dependent upon shelters can get the right training and find jobs. Finding jobs will help them stand on their own feet and end their own hunger. Hand to Hand also does campaigns and events such as the Bowl-a-thon. This Bowl-a-thon is being supported by corporations such as Kimberly-Clark, Gisbracatis, Mintech, and Hercules Accolon, to name a few. Several individuals are not only going to be bowling, but also have donated sponsorship money. So this invitation is to other corporations and companies in Channel 8's listening area to also support us. And if you can hear us, we'd like to have you come up to the Carrier Lanes on June 26 between 2 and 6 o'clock and bowl with us. The registration fee for adults is $20, and for teens it is $10. If you need more information, call Hand to Hand at 201-641-0188, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
The school year is wrapping up, and all over town, kids are celebrating with class productions. Diving for Treasure, an undersea adventure, was the theme of the presentation by the kindergarten class at Chittick School. Over 40 kindergartners dressed up as divers, rainbow fish, mermaids, and other sea creatures, and performed songs and poems such as Summertime, Giant Shells, and Under the Sea.
Summertime is the
And over at Irwin School, students celebrated with a multicultural fair. Students sang and taught lessons to other students about countries they've been studying.
And here comes Chris Hill, 4 feet 6 out of Jefferson Elementary, a confident young man with a great stride. But, uh-oh, he might be in trouble now.
Hey, Chris. Want to get high? No way, man. That stuff's for losers.
Oh, what a move! Chris Hill never hesitates, just blows past that guy. Bob?
You're right, Mike. Look, Chris is known for his great head shake. Then he shifts his weight to the right foot, finds a hole, and zip, he's out of there.
Spectacular, just spectacular. This kid's got a bright future.
Hi, I'm Judith Lebline, Director of Recreation Parks and Community Services, and I'm here at Crystal Springs construction site, getting ready for the July 4th opening. We're determined to be open on July 4th, and we hope to see you here for the grand opening at 4 p.m. Right now, all the final touches are being placed on Crystal Springs, and you can see that the slide tower is up and the slides are being put into place as we speak. Things are working at a feverish pitch here. Recreation and Parks has dedicated all their time to getting Crystal Springs open for you. I have to ask everyone, if you haven't gotten your picture taken, you must make arrangements by calling 390-6797. If you missed your photo shoot, you must get in and get your photo so you can come and join in the excitement on the 4th of July. Don't forget, we open on the 4th of July at 11 a.m. I hope to see you there.
Hi, I'm Amy Fisher, and today I'm at the East Brunswick High School Library with the East Brunswick High School academic team, who has just returned from a very exciting trip. And here's the advisor, Mr. Martin Bordak. Mr. Bordak, what did the academic team do on the trip?
Well, we finished #1 in the nation in the Texaco Star National Academic Championship.
That is absolutely wonderful. What did you win?
$50,000 first prize to be distributed in scholarship monies.
That's fantastic. How is it that you got to go to Houston in the first place?
Well, we won a local competition that was held at Bridgewater Raritan High School. It was sponsored by National Starch Company, and we came in first in that competition. And that not only won us the opportunity to go to Houston, but also paid for the registration and for the plane tickets, and they also gave us some scholarship money.
Could you introduce us to the members of the team?
Yes, we have on my right Scott Landman, Dave Epstein, Kaushik Dada, Mark Stoloff, and Wayne Nichols, and of course Mr. King.
Okay, Scott, how long were you in Houston?
We were in Houston for 8 nights total, and I believe we spent seven days competing. We competed in 7 rounds overall.
And where did you stay while you were there?
We stayed in the dormitories at Rice University, and for the last 2 nights we stayed in a really nice dorm that I'd like to stay at if I ever went there.
Is that because you had won the previous rounds?
Yes.
Okay, David, what were some of the kinds of questions that were asked?
They basically asked questions on every subject, ranging from Russian music to French to the Bible, basically everything.
And how long were each of the rounds of the competition?
Well, there wasn't really a set time until the final televised rounds, in which they had to fit them in the 22-minute format of with commercials and all in a half an hour. But beyond that, it was just basically until they ran out of questions.
And what was the form of the competition?
There were 4 rounds. The first round was 5 and 10-point questions. The second round was toss-ups and bonuses. The third round was speed round, and the final round was 15 and 20-point questions.
How many schools were involved from the beginning?
They said 2,500, but that's including all the regional competitions. At the actual competition, there were 78.
In Houston, there were 78 schools. And how many were in the final round?
In the final round, there were 14 going into the final round.
Mark, could you tell us some of the areas that you found the most challenging, or some of the questions you found most challenging?
Well, traditionally our team has been more oriented towards liberal arts, humanities, so occasionally we had some difficulty with some of the biology questions and some of the areas like that. Generally, we did fairly well because with the team as we are now, we're fairly well balanced and we cover a lot of areas. So generally, we didn't have that many problems with certain areas.
And you answered the question that was the winning question. It was about Van Cliburn. When was that asked? When in the competition did that come about?
That was in the final round when we were playing Manheim Township from Manheim, Pennsylvania. And basically we were coming back in the 4th round because after the 3rd round we were behind them in points. And that was towards the end of the round, and that I think was the final question that we answered correctly. That helped us win.
That's great. Wayne, what did you think about the whole experience in general while you were in Houston?
Well, it was really great meeting all these really smart people from around the country. And that competition was really fun, just to get in there and just show what we know. I really enjoyed it.
So did you have a good time besides coming home being the winner?
Yeah, it was pretty enjoyable being there in Rice.
Great. Okay, Mr. King, here's another national honor for East Brunswick High School. How does this make you feel?
Tremendous. I mean, I'm so proud of these guys, and of course, Mr. Bordak. We forget. I mean, for these gentlemen, it's somewhat of it's exciting for them to get away. It requires Mr. Bordak to leave home for 7 days, and I don't know if his wife is speaking to me, and he told me his little daughter, his baby, doesn't recognize him when he gets home. So we appreciate his efforts, and Amy Bland as well has worked with these gentlemen throughout the year. They've gone many different places around the state. They went to Chicago to compete. And of course, coming home #1 in the United States is absolutely something special for the community as well as individuals. So we're excited.
I think it's wonderful. So congratulations again to all of you. It's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
The recent murder of Nicole Brown Simpson has brought the issue of violence against women onto the front pages. This week, we visited the Center for Women's Global Leadership on the Douglas campus and heard about how women are working together to secure human rights for women worldwide.
The Center for Women's Global Leadership was set up about 4 years ago to really place the concerns of women onto the public policy agendas. nationally and internationally. And we try and do that at several different levels. One is to build the leadership of women who can impact on public policy agendas, and to build the leadership of women who are really doing the work at the grassroots level, to empower women to be able to take positions and impact on the positions that their governments take or that the United Nations takes in relation to women. The other things that we do is to try and build linkages amongst women around the world so that women can build strategies together around specific issues and campaigns to, again, impact on certain arenas. We do our work primarily in the area of human rights. Traditionally, the notion of human rights has looked at civil and political rights that primarily look at what the state does to men, usually like political prisoners or freedom of speech issues or religion, religious freedom, torture, disappearance. But the human rights community has never really looked at what happens to women and the kinds of violations that we face that are like torture and imprisonment, but would be perhaps things like violence that we experience. Domestic violence is a human rights issue, but it has never been described as such. So our work really tries to take the experiences of women and articulate them in ways that brings public attention to them to really try and transform the systems that oppress us. We're involved with doing several different programs. There are UN conferences that are coming up. There's one in Cairo in the fall that'll look at population and development issues. There's one in Copenhagen in the early spring that is going to be looking at economic and social issues. And then there's the Fourth World Conference on Women, which is going to be at Beijing later next year. And what we're trying to do with those conferences is use them as fora to highlight the violations that women experience in these different arenas through hearings and tribunals, through workshops, through lobbying the governments that are involved in negotiating the documents which spell out plans of actions. So that's one whole arena that we're working in. We do leadership institutes, which bring together about 20 to 25 women from around the world, including the US, who spend 2 weeks together looking at issues of what constitutes human rights violations, for example, in the area of reproductive rights. How do you take violence against women as a human rights issue and move it forward? It looks at leadership development issues. What constitutes good leadership? How does women's leadership differ from men's? What are the ways in which we make decisions through a collective process? What are the constraints of that kind of process? You know, we look at sort of leadership issues. We look at organizing issues. How do you organize across diversity? How do you incorporate differences of race, class, region, culture, religion? And then the third area of the Leadership Institute kind of does skills building, so email training, fundraising, organizational development kinds of issues. So that's a fairly major program that we do. We also do public education, like global public education, so that we are involved with conferences and workshops, and we also try and bring together people in roundtables from different disciplines to really try and work through. For example, we're bringing together reproductive rights organizers and population policy organizers and family planning organizations to really talk together as to how we can work together to make all of these institutions accountable to women. One of our newer programs is really trying to look at how to bring human rights issues into the U.S. women's movement and how we might begin to think about what happens to us here as women in the arena of human rights, because we feel that it's very important for us to recognize that we experience violations here as well, that it's not just abuses that women experience in other parts of the world, but that we in fact have to contend with the lives of women here, and that it's also very important for U.S. women to be engaged in a dialogue with women from around the world, because our government is a very powerful one, and what its actions are in relation to the rest of the world are also things that we need to be concerned about as women. The other programs that we're engaged in are what we call strategic planning institutes. And these institutes are more focused institutes where we actually build campaigns and strategies around a particular event. So for example, when the UN World Conference on Human Rights took place in Vienna last year, we had a strategic planning institute, along with other discussions that built a global campaign on women's rights as human rights, where we gathered signatures through a petition campaign which demanded that the UN incorporate violations of women onto the human rights agenda. We had a tribunal that highlighted violence against women, socioeconomic rights, culture and religion, and the violations related to that, women in war situations, refugee women, women who were political prisoners. And this tribunal was a very, very powerful message that went out to the conference. And actually today we're going to be having a video showing of the tribunal in New York City to share that experience. But what we were able to gain at that conference, at the UN World Conference on Human Rights, was one, an incorporation of our concerns into the official government document, the Vienna Declaration that came out of that, where for the first time violence against women was recognized as a human rights issue. We were able to obtain a special rapporteur within the UN system who will be monitoring violence against women throughout the world. We were able to get a commitment from the UN that they would incorporate gender concerns into all of their programs, because the other thing that we're concerned about is that we don't want to continue to be marginalized and separated as, you know, well, the women's program is taking care of it and everything else can then therefore ignore women. So following up on the promises of Vienna and the UN system is also a part of the work that we do, where we monitor and continue to keep the pressure on. And one of the strategies that we're using to keep the pressure on is another petition campaign where we're collecting signatures from women around the world to demand that the United Nations report back to us at the conference in Beijing on what steps it has taken to address violations of women's human rights.
The Institute for Women's Global Leadership has really worked very hard to bring together women from around the world, 22 women in fact, to discuss strategies of incorporating human rights, women's rights, and violence against women. And the group of us come together and really explore the work that we do, how we can incorporate human rights issues into the work that we do on an organizing and grassroots level.
What are some of the strategies that you've come up with?
Well, essentially what happens is we ultimately, after a week of having very in-depth panel discussions with resource people, we end up working in working groups dealing with specific topics. The group that I'm working with is dealing with the issue of marginalized women and including marginalized women's issues within the human rights agenda.
How do you define marginalized women?
The working group came together and identified marginalized women to include, but not limited to, women who are in prison, HIV positive women, sex workers, prostitutes, women who are poor, women who are of certain castes, indigenous women, women of color. And that list is by no means exhaustive. And what we really felt was that in order to have discussions about marginalized women, the ideal situation is that marginalized women be able to talk and speak for themselves, that there should be self-representation. And we serve as allies. And as allies, we feel that we can put forth the concerns of our sisters to make sure that the human rights agenda includes marginalized women. Because if it doesn't, if women who are relegated to the fringes of society don't get to speak, then there is no human rights agenda.
Donna, what are some of the specific strategies you've come up with?
The strategies that our working group have identified include cross-organizational activities. We would be interested in an organization in New York working around human rights, conduct activities with an organization in California. We would have events on the same day. The purpose of these kinds of events would be to inform our communities, our individual communities, about what human rights means, what it means for women, and how the people that we work with can begin to think about human rights as a right for all people, not just primarily for men, not just for some women. Another strategy that we developed is to have organizational, what we call in-service trainings. Those trainings would involve marginalized women coming to our organizations, talking about their issues so that we can hear what their needs are, and then framing that in a human rights perspective and taking that out to the broader world, the international world, the global world. We've also developed an idea that incorporates editorials. What we would like to do is have each organization write articles for their individual newsletters that identify women's rights as human rights and push forward the discussion of marginalized women.
For more information about the Center for Women's Global Leadership, call 932-8782. That's all for this week. Thanks for watching.